In the quiet suburbs of Portland, Oregon, the rain fell steadily, painting the streets with silver streaks that shimmered under the dim glow of street lamps. Inside a modest two-story house at the end of Willow Lane, Emily, a 16-year-old girl with chestnut hair and thoughtful green eyes, sat by her bedroom window. Her gaze was fixed on the wet streets outside, but her mind was far away, tangled in a web of grief and confusion. The house felt unbearably silent, almost as if it mourned with her. It had been only a week since her father, Robert, had passed away unexpectedly, leaving her and her mother in a swirl of shock, sorrow, and unanswered questions. Emily clutched her favorite notebook, the one her father had given her on her last birthday. Its pages were filled with sketches of imagined worlds, little stories she had scribbled late at night, and quotes she had loved. Normally, flipping through it brought her comfort, a sense of connection to her dreams and memories. But today, even the notebook felt heavy in her hands, as though it absorbed some of the sadness that weighed down her chest. Her fingers traced the edges of the pages, and her eyes blurred with tears she didn't know how to stop. "Will things ever feel normal again?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. The only reply was the soft rhythmic tapping of rain against the glass, echoing the ache inside her heart. She thought about the last moments with her father, how he had smiled at her from the doorway just days before his passing, a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. How he had promised her that no matter what happened, he would always be there for her in spirit. Now those words felt distant, like echoes carried away by the storm outside. Emily felt a shiver run through her, the coldness of loss settling deep into her bones. She hugged her knees tightly to her chest, as if she could somehow hold herself together through sheer force. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door. Emily's heart jumped, and she quickly wiped her tears, hoping no one would notice the quiet sob she had been trying to contain. The door creaked open, and in stepped her grandfather, James, a kind man in his 70s with silver hair and gentle eyes that always seemed to understand more than he said. He didn't rush in with words or questions. Instead, he just looked at her with a warmth that made the tight knot in her chest loosen slightly. "Emily," he said softly, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who had faced countless storms in his life. "May I sit with you for a moment?" She nodded silently, not trusting herself to speak. James sat down on the edge of her bed, folding his hands over his cane. He didn't force conversation. He simply sat there, letting the silence stretch, letting her feel that she wasn't alone in her pain. After a while, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, hand-carved lantern. Its surface was worn but polished, a delicate design etched into the metal that caught what little light there was in the room. "This," James said, placing it gently beside her, "is more than just a lantern. It's a reminder, Emily. A reminder that even when everything seems dark, there's always a spark inside you that cannot be extinguished." Emily looked at the lantern, its simple glow reflecting in her teary eyes. She didn't understand how a small object could mean so much, but she felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in days, a faint hope, a warmth that spread from her chest to her fingertips. James smiled, noticing the tiny change, and continued softly. "Life will throw storms at us, sometimes more than we think we can bear, but storms pass and light always finds a way through. Even when you can't see it, it's there, inside you, waiting to guide you forward." Emily held the lantern in her hands, its weight grounding her in the present. The light seemed almost alive, flickering gently as if it were breathing alongside her. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to breathe fully, to feel that maybe she wasn't completely lost. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time, they were not only tears of sadness. There was a hint of release, of acceptance, and of the fragile beginnings of hope. She looked out the window again at the rain-drenched streets and the trees bending under the wind, and realized something profound. Life, much like the storm outside, could be unpredictable, harsh, and overwhelming. But within that storm, there could be light, warmth, and guidance, if only she allowed herself to see it. Emily pressed her hands against the lantern and whispered almost to herself, "I can keep going. I will find my way." James placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and gave a reassuring squeeze. "That's my brave girl," he said softly. "Remember, even in the darkest nights, a single light can change everything." And in that moment, Emily felt a small, resilient flame ignite within her heart, a quiet certainty that though the days ahead would be challenging, she had the strength to face them. She was not alone. The light was there, inside her, and she would carry it forward, one flicker at a time. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside Emily's room, the soft glow of the lantern made everything feel a little warmer, a little more hopeful. And for the first time since her father's passing, she allowed herself to believe that perhaps happiness, though distant, was still possible. Weeks passed, and the days in Portland slowly started to feel a little less heavy for Emily. The rain still fell occasionally, painting the streets silver, but inside her, something had shifted. The small hand-carved lantern that her grandfather James had given her had become a daily ritual. Every morning before school, she would light it on her desk, watching its warm glow spread across her room. It was a tiny, flickering flame, but to Emily, it was a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could exist. With the lantern by her side, Emily began to take small steps toward reclaiming her life. She returned to her art class, where she had once sketched carefree landscapes and imaginary worlds. At first, she felt hesitant, afraid that laughter or joy might betray the sadness she carried inside. But her friends welcomed her back without questions, offering smiles and gentle nudges that slowly chipped away at the walls she had built around her heart. She realized that reconnecting with them didn't erase her grief, but it reminded her that she didn't have to face it alone. Emily also started writing again. Her notebook, once heavy with untold sorrow, now became a canvas for her emotions. She wrote about her father, about the loneliness she had felt, and about the small flickers of hope that had begun to appear in her days. Each word she penned was a release, a way of speaking to him even though he was no longer physically present. Through writing, she discovered that sorrow and hope could coexist, and that expressing her feelings didn't make her weak. It made her strong. One evening, after a long day at school and a quiet dinner with her mother, Emily stepped onto the porch with her lantern in hand. The sky was painted in shades of deep purple and gold as the sun dipped behind the horizon. She placed the lantern on the wooden railing and sat beside it, letting the gentle light wash over her face. The soft hum of the city mixed with the distant calls of birds returning to their nests, and Emily felt a calm she hadn't experienced in weeks. "I can do this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the evening breeze. The words felt like a promise to herself, a vow to keep moving forward despite the emptiness she sometimes felt. The warmth of the lantern seemed to respond, flickering gently as if acknowledging her determination. It was not just an object of light. It was a symbol of her inner strength, the spark that had never truly gone out. In the following days, Emily's confidence grew. She began volunteering at a local community center, helping younger children with art projects and reading sessions. She discovered that bringing joy to others gave her a sense of purpose, a reminder that life still had meaning beyond her grief. Each smile she received, each child who proudly showed her their artwork, felt like a drop of sunlight breaking through clouds she hadn't even realized had been hanging over her. Even in moments of sadness, Emily found solace in the simple act of lighting her lantern. It had become a ritual of resilience, a quiet declaration that she would not be consumed by darkness. She realized that the pain she felt for her father would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it became a part of her story, a chapter that gave depth and color to her life rather than leaving it in shadow. One rainy afternoon, Emily stood by the window with the lantern glowing beside her. She watched as children splashed through puddles and neighbors hurried home under umbrellas. The rain that once felt heavy and oppressive now seemed cleansing, a reminder that life could continue to flow even after storms. Emily felt a sense of gratitude she hadn't known she was capable of feeling. She was grateful for her grandfather's wisdom, for the love of her mother, for the strength she had discovered within herself, and even for the sorrow that had taught her to cherish light more deeply. As evening fell, Emily took the lantern with her to the living room. She placed it on the coffee table and sat quietly, Reflecting on the past weeks, she realized that hope was not something that magically returned overnight. It was something nurtured, tended to, and protected like the flame of a lantern. Every small act of courage, every step toward connection and purpose, had strengthened her spirit. Looking at the flickering light, Emily whispered a promise into the quiet room. "I will carry this light with me, always. No matter how dark it gets, I will not forget that I have strength and I will find my way." The lantern glowed steadily in response, and Emily felt a deep, unshakable certainty settle in her chest. She was ready to face the future, to embrace both the joys and the challenges it held, knowing that the light within her could guide her through any darkness. And as the first stars appeared in the clear patches of sky, Emily smiled, a soft, hopeful smile. The world was still imperfect, and life would continue to bring storms, but she had discovered something far more powerful than any temporary darkness, the enduring, unwavering light of her own courage and hope.